Understanding news anxiety. In this episode of Therapist Mom Show, we're going to be talking about news anxiety. We're going to understand the causes, the effects, and go over some coping strategies for you to process triggering current events. Because the current events that we see on our 24/7 news cycle are incredibly triggering. And that's actually on purpose. And most of us know this, but news outlets need to sell advertising space. They need to get eyeballs. And what sells or what gets people to look is fear, because we want to see so that we could somehow fix it or change it or figure it out or somehow keep ourselves safe. So we have to have all the information. So with headlines that instigate some kind of fear in us, we're like, we got to watch this because we got to know. We need the information to protect ourselves. That's what our belief is. And that's why if it bleeds, it leads, right? Did you ever hear that phrase? If it bleeds, it leads. That means that if it's something that is emotionally triggering, they use it as front page news. They put that in the headlines to get people to watch. And it works. It works. The psychology of this is so, it's so complete. It works. It makes us want to watch. The problem is in today's day and age, news is 24/7. I mean, when I was young, it was an hour in the evening. It was like a half hour of local news and a half hour of world news. And that was bad enough because there was bad things happening back then as well. But if you think about it, our brain developed for 2 million years this fight or flight response that's in our reptilian brain, in our brain, in our lower brain, this fight or flight to protect ourselves from danger in order to survive. And that came around so that we could respond to events that we were in the moment in danger of, right? But the danger was in the moment, or there was some potential for danger in the moment, and our brain wanted us to assess and decide to take some kind of action. Now that is triggered, that fear or that fight or flight response, that fear response is triggered when we're not in immediate danger. We see like horrible things happening from really far away, and we're human. So we're having a regular human response to the situation. So nothing's wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're not extra sensitive. Like, we're all sensitive on purpose because it was to help us survive. But the way our brain developed for those 2 million years of evolution till we got to this kind of human was a different world than we're living in right now. A totally different world. And the changes that's happened the last 100 years is unprecedented in the first, like, if you compare it to the first 2 million. It's so unbelievably different and rapid in the change that is coming to us, the change in our lifetime of how the context of our world is changing so quickly with modern conveniences and with inventions and with the digital age. Things are happening so quickly that our brain took 2 million years. It's not going to change in 10 years. Right? It took 2 million years to get to where it is now, to solve problems, to survive all day. In some ways, I mean, you look at the news and you think, no way, we're living in a horrible time. There's genocide, there's wars, there's horrible things happening to people all over the world. In some ways, with racism and genderism and ageism and all the isms, like, we're way behind where we should be in this world, how we treat people. And so it's kind of, you feel like, it feels like it feels like the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And you hear that phrase a lot, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And it's triggering a lot of anxiety because we think there's some future danger when it's like mayhem, when there's like some post-apocalyptic world that we have to live in, because we've seen that in all the movies. And so we're afraid of this future danger, which we have no idea what it's going to look like and what it's going to be like. It just seems very dangerous and very uncertain and very unknown. So we have all of this anxiety imagining that and not being able to do anything about it because we don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know what skills we're going to need. We don't know who is going to be around. We don't know where we're going to get resources, right? So we can't really prep for that. And it just increases our feeling of helplessness. Now, in the human brain, helplessness triggers a fear response because it's trying to get you to figure out how to be helpful for yourself. So when you feel helpless, your brain's like, I got to figure out how to make a difference, how to get some control back. And we're all kind of walking around as control freaks, right? So we're trying to get our control back. So that's the cause of this news anxiety. You are having a regular human response to our world. But that doesn't mean that you have to stay there suffering, because this is kind of our destiny to have this regular human response, and this is our world and we have to stay here. We actually could feel better if we understood it in a new way, and if we use coping skills in a new way. And in picking our coping skills, it's helpful to understand it, right? If you understood it as a mental health problem, or you understood it as you defined yourself as sensitive, or you labeled yourself as something negative, like too sensitive, or I can't handle it, or I'm too anxious, or whatever, then you're caught in that label and you're caught in that negative identity, and you're frozen there and you're stuck there, right? It puts limitations on you and what you could do to get out of it or feel better or change anything. And if you thought about it differently, and you thought, hey, I'm having a regular human response to our world, I'm actually doing a lot better than I see of myself. If I put all those negative labels on myself, I'm actually doing a lot better than I thought I was. And that's pretty amazing. What if you were doing better than you thought you were? Think about that. We think we're doing horrible. We think we're inadequate. We think we're not enough. We think that we're weak. And we think that we just can't handle the world. And we think that we're different than everybody else. And none of that is true. We're all struggling with this because this is a regular human response. The way our brain has developed, the way the human brain is developed, this is a regular human response to our modern world. So if you think about helplessness as increasing anxiety, then you could think about the coping skills that you'll need is how to reclaim your agency. Agency is your power, your response to the world, how you respond to things that happen to you, or how you respond to what you see going on in the world. We're so focused on what we can't control, everything that's happening outside of us or everything everybody else is doing. And we forget to focus on our response to that. And this is the biggest secret, that is the most powerful thing that you can know if you're dealing with too much stress, too much anxiety, too much worry, too much depression about how the world is going. Your response means more than any of that you're out of control of. And you have 100% of control over your response. That means instead of sitting around and feeling helpless and watching the news, we got to do something, right? Our bodies, our souls, and our brain are clamoring, right? They want to do something, to make a difference, to matter, to connect. They want to be part of something awesome. I want to be part of something awesome, don't you? I want to be part of something awesome. I want to be part of making the world the way I want it to be, right? Be the change that I want to see in the world. I want to be that change. And when we're frozen in fear, we're frozen. And this is another secret about anxiety, and think about this. Like, we think that we need the anxiety. It's kind of our friend in a way because it keeps us safe, right? It keeps us vigilant so that if there was danger, we'd be ready for it. That is not true. That is the biggest lie that anxiety tells. Because really, if we were anxious all the time, we're depressed, we'd have low motivation, we kind of withdraw, we don't even want to be around people, we don't take risks, we don't seek out opportunities, because what's the point of them, right? We just have no motivation, we can't concentrate, we're upset all the time. We're not building our skills, we're not building our connections, we're not taking risks and challenging ourselves to be better and better. So if something bad happened, who would be more equipped to function? Someone who's had anxiety, so they're vigilant and they can see it coming, or somebody who's built their skills and built their trust in themselves and built their connections, right? Okay, listen, none of us are getting out of here alive. right? None of us are getting out of here alive. When my dad was still alive, he was so stressed about his illness, and it just felt so out of control for him. And I would tell him all the time, Dad, none of us are getting out of here alive. And so, what are you going to do with your short life? Right? You might have a long life or short life. Relatively, it's short, right? We don't have that much time, and we don't want to waste it being frozen. We want to waste it. We want to use it, making a difference and finding connection, finding love, finding joy. And when we do that, it changes everything. Like their joy and anxiety, or laughter and anxiety, or togetherness and anxiety cannot live the same moment together, right? It transforms anxiety. Anxiety needs your full attention on the anxiety. It needs your full attention on the anxiety, right? It wants all your brain space. And so if you're doing something, if you're being creative, if you're taking some actions, if you're focused and trusting yourself, you're doing something to make the world a better place, there's no room for anxiety there. You have purpose, you have joy, and you could have joy even when there's horrible things happening, because you have joy in knowing that you're making a difference and maybe helping someone suffer a little bit less. You're going into situations in your life and say, everywhere I go, my goal is to leave people better than I found them. I don't always do this. This is always a goal of mine, but sometimes I forget because I get in my own head, or, I'm upset about something and I forget that. Let that all go. One time, my friend Asha, when I was in Egypt a couple months ago, she said, she was praying in the morning. She lives her life in ceremony, and she was praying in the morning, and she said she found herself rethinking, those ruminating thoughts that we all have. She was thinking about some whatever conversation or something that didn't, something between somebody that was a little sticky. And she was like, I like could just give that to the water, give that to God, give that to the universe, whatever you want to call it, give that to the Nile. I don't have to hold it. Like, I don't have to keep thinking about it. And I was like, I love that. I love that. And it's not that easy. I know if you have anxiety, people are telling me all the time, like, just get your mind off it. And it's not bad advice, actually. It's just like, if we knew how to do that, we would. And if you stick with me and watch my shows, watch my videos, I teach you actually how to do that. Because if you don't know how to get your mind off it, because you can't just push anxiety away, you got to replace it with something. You got to replace it with something. You got to really think about, especially now, we have some power here. We are standing in a precipice of history that is very, it's going to inform a long time. And people who care about other people, and people who care about the world, the earth, more than they care about money, we need to not be frozen and scared by this. I remember Carolyn Mace. She is an author and wrote a lot of books. And a long time ago, I had so much anxiety. I mean, I don't have my book around me now, but I wrote 5 books on anxiety. And the latest one is Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. It's for teenagers, but parents, educators, therapists are all reading it because it works for everyone, first of all. And if we're trying to help somebody young, you got to read this book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. Link is below. So everyone's like, I tell my own story about anxiety. And when I had a lot of anxiety, I couldn't watch the news. I couldn't hear about anything bad. I couldn't watch the news. And I was listening to Carolyn Mace, and she was talking about who better than you. She was talking about the wounded healer. I think that was the name of the book. And I was listening to it. It's her voice. I love listening to audiobooks in the voice of the author because you really get to feel the energy of it. And she was saying, who better than you? If you're sensitive, if you're a healer, who better than you? Because you could, if you learn how to process this stuff and use it to make the world a better place, or use it to help other people, who better than you to watch it? So her challenge was, don't stop watching it. And I think when I talk about coping skills in a couple of minutes, one of the things is limit, because 24/7, I mean, even when she wrote this book 25 years ago or 30 years ago, I don't know how long it was, there wasn't this 24-hour news cycle. So she might be saying it a little bit different now. Like, we don't need to consume it that much. It's repetitive. And that's not helpful. We need the information, and then we need to be like, I'm going to decide what I want to do about it. Some fear and guilt are emotions, the regular human emotions, and they have a purpose. And the purpose of fear is to call our attention, right? So a fear response or a fear stimulus calls our attention so that we could decide, what do I have to do? Do I have to fight? Do I have to freeze? Do I have to flee? What do I do to keep myself safe in this situation? So fear is a stimulus, and then it calls our attention, right? Because it puts adrenaline out into our body and puts adrenaline up to the prefrontal cortex so we can look around and say, what's the problem? Let me figure out how to fix it. And then we take action. And it's the action that's the important part. It's the action that's the important part. When we take action, the fear stimulus is unnecessary anymore because we're taking action, right? And our body feels enabled, and we feel confidence, and we make a commitment to that action, and we go, and hopefully we survive another day. And we're talking about, like, when you're talking about how it was developed, I always think about that saber-toothed tiger in the woods, right? So you're early man and early human, and you were I'm sorry about that, you're early human, and you meet a saber-toothed tiger in the woods, and you have the fear response, and then you decide what to do, and you run home, right? Run out of there, climb a tree, whatever you have to do to keep yourself safe. And if you keep yourself safe, that's what we're talking about. But now, now we're triggered 98% of the time. There is no saber-toothed tiger or no metaphorical saber-toothed tiger. We're not endangered 98% of the time that we have that trigger. We're not in danger. But our prefrontal cortex doesn't say, okay, you're not in danger, everything's fine. No, our prefrontal cortex right now in today's world, it's like, I don't see anything, but I feel it. Keep pumping those hormones because I'm going to figure out a problem. And when your monkey mind tries to figure out a problem, it'll find something, right? It'll make up problems if you don't have any. So it's fear is to take action. Guilt's the same way. And maybe this is a little tangent in this video, but guilt is to call our attention to something so that we could take some action to repair, if we want to repair something that we did. Right now, we get stuck in the guilt. We get stuck in the fear and stay in the fear and don't take any action. Or we get stuck in the guilt and don't take any action, right? It freezes us, but we have to override that reptilian brain, because if the guilt turns into fear and it freezes us. But we have to override that reptilian brain with our mammalian brain and say, let me decide an action, and then the guilt is useless. So the only job it had was to bring our attention to something. So if the media is going to try to bring our attention to something, let's use it for what it's supposed to be used for in our brain. And let's use it to be like, okay, is there something that I could do here? And if you sometimes there's news stories that are so far away, there's actually literally nothing that we can do. Sometimes you could send money or something, but sometimes there's literally nothing. But there's people right in our communities, right probably in our houses, that need a little extra care or need a little extra something. So we still could do something even in our small corner. And I do encourage you to do that. That makes a difference also. Even if you can't do something for that family who had this tragedy happen and really, really far away, you could do something for somebody here and make a difference. And that will decrease your news anxiety or any anxiety that you have or any depression that you have about the way the world is going. Speaking out about it, helping somebody else, getting involved in politics, getting involved in behind the candidates that you like, either locally or right now nationally, right? This is the year to have people get involved. And I think young people are more and more involved because it matters to them, right? It matters to them. Like, they're inheriting this world and they want to do something to make a huge difference. And wow, I have to tell you that there is so much power in this Generation Z, and they are ready and poised to change the world, and we could trust them, but we have to show them how to trust themselves. So if you are an adult in the world. So let's talk a little bit before we leave about how to cope with news anxiety, how to cope when you're triggered by current events. First, have compassion for yourself. because you are a regular human being. You're a sensitive, loving human being that cares about other humans. If you did not care about other humans, you would not be triggered by these current events. And so it says that you're a good person. So have compassion for yourself and understand that this is a regular human response. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're not sensitive and weak, and you're not like unable. None of that is true. You are so much better than you think you are. You are amazing, actually. Right? So what we want to do when we think about coping skills is we want to think about one, a little bit of limits is okay. Unplug sometimes, go outside, move your body, let your body release some of that stuff with like shaking or some kind of movement. I lift heavy weights. I walk really far every day, especially now as things are getting like heavier. I walk. I actually walk like 6 to 8 miles a day, and I lift weights about 3 times a week, like heavy weights. It really helps me release some stress from my body. I don't lift weights that long. I do it really short, so I don't add stress. So we want to release that we hold. You know, our body holds our emotions. So any stress or sadness or any response, any triggering from current events, from that news anxiety or headline stress or digital depression or whatever you want to call it. There's so many different words for it nowadays. We want to release that through physical activity. We want to release that through mindfulness activities like deep breathing. I've been doing that because I've had some stomach problems lately. So I've been doing really deep breathing low in my belly. And you realize how little we do that when you do it. It's amazing. It feels so good. You want to get involved in something. Okay. Keep informed, because who better than you? Who better than you? Listen, the news, you don't have to read everything. You could scan, or you could kind of get caught up once a day. You're caught up, right? If you watch 24/7, it's a lot of repeated stuff, because every news outlet, every blog or every news blog or whatever it is, they need lots of words to get good SEO, to get views. They need to just have a lot of words in there. This is repetitive, and you don't have to consume it over and over and over and over again. Once will suffice. So you want to keep informed so you know what to do. I encourage you to read, like, not the propaganda about things, but the actual policies that people are saying, this is what I stand behind. Read the actual policies. Instead of listening to opinions, listen to the actual candidates speaking, instead of listening to other people's opinions. Like, keep informed and choose reliable sources. Instead of just watching opinions all day, watch the source, if that makes sense. There's news, and then there's opinion news. Like, it's like, because 24/7 they don't have enough news. They don't have enough just this is what happened. They have to have people on talking about what they think about it. And we're already doing that. We don't need to listen to other people doing that. So seek support, talk to other people. Don't isolate yourself. If you need help from a mental health professional, we are there. I still see clients, so you can come on over to my website if you're interested in that. So engage in positive action. Be the change that you want to see, so you can counterbalance that negative with positive activities in your own life. It could be joyful activities. It could be fun. It doesn't have to always be doing something for somebody else, but doing something for somebody else gives us purpose, gives us so much joy, gives us a deeper understanding of the human condition and hope, because people who go through really hard things, they still love their family. They still laugh. They still like enjoy life. And if you have had anxiety and see a family who's gone through such tragedy, like war-torn country, and they've come here or something, it changes you. It decreases your anxiety. I mean, you're not doing it just for you. Obviously, it's a mutually beneficial situation, but you definitely benefit in so many different ways. It gives you hope. It also helps you appreciate the things that you have. And somebody quoted this today, and I thought it was really powerful. Whatever you celebrate, you perpetuate. Whatever you celebrate, you perpetuate. Practice gratitude. You celebrate something that you appreciate, you celebrate that, you perpetuate it, you grow it, you give your attention to something, it grows. You see miracles, they multiply. So it's amazing. So let's conclude here. We're talking about news anxiety. It's real. It's a growing issue, especially this week with Joe Biden stepping down. With last week, Trump was shot, and then Joe Biden stepped down, and Kamala's coming forth, and who knows what kind of slings that people are going to make, and how that's going to affect us, and how we're going to feel. And we really have to decide, like, what are our values? Do we want to shut it out and pretend it's not there because it's not necessarily helpful? Do we want to have, negative coping skills like overeating or drinking too much or just trying to forget the world? Or do we want to face it, feel our feelings so we could process it, so we could help other people process it, so we could stay connected? I watched a movie on Netflix. It was made for Netflix with Harry Connick Jr. And it was like, Find Me Falling, I think it's called. And he was, no spoilers. Maybe I don't think it's spoiled. This might be a little spoiler, but he got a house on a cliff, and it was a common place where people suicided. And so he wanted to put a fence up to protect people. And he didn't know how to build a fence. And so he's building up a fence to kind of protect people. And it was kind of like he kept people out, kept people in. Someone asked him at one point, is this to keep people out or keep people in? And he was kind of like both. And this is a spoiler, I'm sorry. So just skip over a minute of this video if you don't want me to spoil it, or go watch it. Go watch the movie and come back. But he tears it down and ends up putting a sign that said, "Let's talk." I love that. And we were trying to think about the symbology of the fence, and it's like connection heals, not separation. We're like, why did he knock it down? Does that mean he doesn't care about people anymore? He doesn't care about protecting them? But he knocked it down because he realized connection is what heals. Connection is what saves people. Connection is what saves people from news anxiety. When you are triggered by current events, connect with people. Do something that matters. Have a purpose. Do something that brings you joy. Do not feel guilty if you feel joy if someone else is suffering, because you're appreciating what you have. It's not like putting it in their face. It's not at their expense. You might spread some joy. You're still doing something for somebody else. And also, it's okay to have joy yourself. So thank you so much for watching Therapist Mom Show. I'm on live every Monday at 8 p.m. And I put out the topic earlier. So if you want to come over to my website, jodiamond.com/therapistmom, you could sign up for my Finding Your Inner Compass video. And then I'll see you every Monday at 8 p.m. And I would love it if you watch this video next.